Hey everyone, good morning. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the start of the weekend, or in some cases, it might be the middle of your weekend, but welcome. Glad you're here. This is the Data Roundtable for today, a stream where I walk in with no agenda. This is a good place for us as data professionals to get together and talk and just see what's going on in the data world, see what's on your mind. What have you been reading? What have you been working on? What are your latest thoughts on AI, so on and so forth? It's an open format discussion that I'm trying out. Today is actually the first full week. I started last Sunday, so now it's been a full week, 7 days. I intend to do this for the rest of the summer and just kind of see where we end up. So, really looking forward to talking with you today. What I've been doing is I've been here on YouTube at this hour, 1500 GMT. So wherever you are in the world, this is 1500 GMT. And then at approximately 1600 GMT, I switch over to Instagram. It just depends on the conversation and how things are going, how I'm feeling, and things along those lines. But you're welcome to join us. You're welcome to say hello. The whole point is to start discussion, just get people talking. And it's really an important part of data science, right? Being able to express your thoughts and take in other people's thoughts, take in other people's feedback. Super important in data science. So this is a good place to practice. Really looking forward to hearing what's on your mind and just kind of seeing where the conversation takes us. That's kind of the fun of running a show in this type of format. So go ahead, let me know if there's something you want to talk about. But I did publish a piece of content this morning that's already getting a couple of views on Instagram, where I talk about how I had an experience where I was approached by a very large journal, like a big news source for the insurance industry. They had seen the piece that CBS News did on what I did with AI for the insurance claims by my parents. My parents were affected by the Los Angeles fires in 2025. And that journal was, read by the insurance company or insurance industry. And they wanted me to do an interview to kind of help them understand AI and how they can use AI. And they first contacted me by LinkedIn. And they had asked for my email address. I said, here's my email address, but I'm warning you ahead of time that I don't have a good impression of the insurance industry, but here's my email address. And then when they sent me the questions, it was very clear that they were looking to do more work with AI in insurance, right? They framed it as wanting to understand policyholders and all that. But the first step in blocking you from doing that is understanding how you're doing it, right? So I sent them, I told them I was declining, that I had no interest in helping the insurance industry. And that's that. I didn't like their questions. I don't like what they do. So why help them, right? So that's a little piece of what's going on in my part of the world, in my life, and with AI and whatnot. So if there's something else that you want to talk about, let me know. But I thought I just kind of seed the conversation in that regard, because you gotta have a code, right? A man's got to have a code. So I'm just putting that out there because that is something that I just sent out last night. I had seen their questions earlier in the week and I hadn't really gotten back to them. But yeah. So over in the chat, my good friend Manoj. Manoj, how are you, friend? Manoj says, "Good morning, Sir Dennis, and everyone. Greetings from Bangalore, India. So good to see you, Manoj. Haven't seen you in a couple days. So good to see you. Hope you're doing well out there in Bangalore. Maybe you were finishing up some studies or whatnot. I imagine that it's very, very hot out there for you. I think really most parts of India are very, very warm nowadays. As I mentioned earlier in the week, I was hearing some commentary that was kind of forming the theory that some parts of India may become uninhabitable in the very near future due to heat, right? At some point, the people are going to say, this is just too much heat, and they decide to leave. So I don't know if that's actually going to happen at some point in the future. It certainly sounds possible. But Manoj, hope you're doing okay out there. Hope that you're staying cool because the heat can be brutal. Out here where I live, it's very hot right now. I stay indoors most of the day because of the heat. But hope you're doing well out there, Manoj. Let us know how you're doing, my friend. And Manoj, if there's anything you want to discuss, anything on your mind, this is our new format. This might be your first time attending since since I introduced this data format or this data roundtable format. So anybody can bring up any topic, and we'll just see where the conversation takes us. This week we've talked about OpenAI browsers. We've talked about Grok. We've talked about jobs. We've talked about any number of things over here. So I'm here for you guys. I'm here for as long as you want, and just kind of go from there. See where we end up. Earlier today, I also posted the results for the little survey I ran where I was asking people's opinions on Grok 4. Grok 4 was released earlier this week, I think Wednesday night. And I just had a little slider that asked people, what did you think of Grok 4? I got a pretty good number of votes on it. And the number was not great, guys. It seems like there's a mild reply to Grok 4. There were plenty of people who kind of just said, You know, personally, as I said earlier, my experience was that I gave Grok 4 the same prompt I gave to another existing engine. I think I used 4.0 mini high, and they gave me the exact same answer. So I didn't see that level where, you know, Elon or whoever XAI was promising that it was going to be such a big step forward. I didn't see it. I was getting the same answers as I got from other existing engines. So it was kind of like a big nothing burger to me in my usage of it. But if you have used it, let me know in the chat. Feel free to share your experience with it, okay? So Manoj says, yes, sir, even I feel the same about insurance company. Their intention is to increase premiums. They reduce their claims. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Manoj. You know, it really is a little bit like, I don't want to say disturbing, but it is very interesting how many people right now do not have positive impressions of insurance companies. I mean, and it's across the U.S., across many parts of the world. You know, I know in other parts of the world that, you know, they don't really have insurance, but when is the last time you met someone who had a positive view of their insurance company or of the insurance industry in general? Like never, right? Never. So yeah, Manoj, I'm not surprised to hear that. You know, you're in India and on the other side of the planet, but even in other parts of the world, they just don't like insurance companies, right? So, you know, and another thing I also share for me, you know, as far as just my own experience and people I know, one of my good friends, you know, I'm not going to name them. One of my good friends is a very good guy. We've been friends for a while. He's probably he you know he's up there with one of the wealthiest people I know. And when I say that, you know, I don't say that lightly. You know, I'm not talking about people who flaunt it on Instagram. I'm talking about people with legitimate wealth. You know, he's one of the wealthiest guys I know, and he self-insures. He doesn't do any insurance company. He says that's one of his kind of like, you know, basics to life, that he takes care of his stuff and he self-insures. and he doesn't buy insurance for anything. He doesn't like dealing with insurance companies. So, maybe that's something we should all think about, right? But, for me, one of the wealthiest people I know, he self-insures. So that's something, maybe I'll consider for parts of my life in the future. Casual Economist, so good to see you, friend. He says, just got in. Are we talking about your post on insurance? Yeah, Casual Economist. I mean, I'm just kind of, kicking off the conversation. We can talk about that. We can talk about whatever people want to talk about, really. But yeah, just to kind of seed the conversation, just to get us going, I did highlight that post because it also is getting a bit of attention on Instagram. People seem to be responding to it because I think it really resonates with a lot of people, right? I recently had another fight with insurance because I guess my dental insurance is all screwed up as far as the coverage they're offering me and what I've been paying for and whatnot. I mean, it's just everywhere you go with insurance companies. Like, when's the last time you met somebody who said, you know what, I just had a really positive experience with my insurance company? Like, nobody ever says that, right? Like who's ever told you that in the last few years? Like, never, right? So yeah, everything is going well. Casual Economist, hope that you're doing well too. Casual says, just got in. Just got in from where? What were you doing? It's early in the morning. Well, I guess it's not early in other parts of the U.S. It's early for me because, I mean, where would you be getting in from at this hour? But anyways, guys, so yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk about insurance. We can talk about anything you guys want. It's just it's an open format. I've also been getting a lot of feedback on my PyTorch posts. That seems to always get people going. There's always the people. I love PyTorch. Why are you talking bad about PyTorch? That always happens. So, but you know what? Please do not take anything I'm saying as complaints because I make content for a living. I got nothing to complain about in life. I'm gonna be writing some scripts later today. I got a couple of items that I want to push out for content. But yeah, everything is going well over here in my world. As long as my air conditioner keeps working, that's all I really care about. It is hot outside, but I'm inside. I'm in the air conditioning. That's all that matters. But what are you guys up to? What are you guys up to this weekend? So Manoj says, I'm doing good, feels good, and enjoying the studies. Good, Manoj. What is the school year in India? I assume it's going to be finishing up soon, isn't it? Let me know. Denelson, our good friend Denelson from LA says, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a great day. Well, Denelson, your day is just starting. To add to the insurance company discussion, they have a tendency to not inform us about policy changes, and you find out when you go to the doctor. You know what, Denelson? You're 100% right. You are describing exactly what happened to me. So I think I've shared this before, but I'm someone who never has any dental problems. I've never had any dental work done, like, ever. I've never had a cavity, never had, like, I don't even know the names. Like, I've never even, like, I've never spent any money whatsoever on doctors. I've never had problems. Maybe like a month ago, I started having some tooth pain in the back. So I went to the dentist, like, it was that serious. Like, I went to the dentist. And, long story short, they told me I needed a root canal. And they were calling my insurance because, insurance is supposed to cover 50% and I pay 50%. And it turns out that all this time I've had an insurance plan for children. Like, for some reason, the insurance company in their records has me as on a child's dental plan. So I've been paying this whole time for a plan that doesn't even cover adults. Like, how crazy is that, right? And that's exactly what happened to me, Denelson, where, like, the dentist had to tell me this. The insurance just kept on collecting my money, right? But the dentist was the one that had to tell me that they had declined the claim because I was too old for it. They were expecting me to be under 18 years old or whatever the age was, right? So you're 100% right, Denelson. It's very frustrating. Terrible communication, terrible customer service, and you find out at the last possible moment. Because obviously I had to scramble then, right? Because now I'm basically an uninsured dental patient. So I'm telling you, they're slippery little suckers. But anyways, I hope this doesn't feel too much like a gripe session for insurance companies. But like I said, I just think it resonates with a lot of people, right? A lot of people have had negative experiences with insurance companies. I mean, if you look at the situation that happened in New York with United Healthcare, that guy has a lot of sympathizers. I mean, if you ever go on TikTok and read like with the posts about that guy, there are a ton of supporters for him. Now, obviously, what he did or what he's accused of doing is terrible, but people like empathize, right? Because hey, that happened to me too, or hey, I had a bad experience with United Healthcare also. So a lot of sympathizers out there. The Casual Economist says medical insurance promote plans to seniors that remove routine eye exams and push them towards vision plans. Is that right? Is that a thing? I did not know that. Promote plans to seniors that remove routine eye. Yeah, you know what? Casual Economist, to your point, I have heard that what is it? When you get older, there's Medicare, right? And I think you're required to go on Medicare, like no matter what insurance you have. Excuse me, I think the government requires you to have some Medicare coverage. And from what I've heard, Medicare is like a whole other scam slash ball of wax slash whatever, right? So I'm sure you're right, Casual Economist. They have all types of craziness happening for seniors, right? Which is unfortunate, but I'm sure you're right. When it comes to Medicare and all that, the thing that I can't figure out, maybe you guys can tell me, is like, how does this all end? Like, how does this all get repaired? Like, I'm starting to lose belief that there's a way to repair all of this, right? Like, I just don't see it getting any better. Like, they're not going to get any friendlier. They're not going to get any cheaper, right? Like, when's the last time anybody reduced their rates on anything, right? Maybe Karl Marx was right? Karl Marx says that capitalism ends in complete destruction, right? So who knows? Who knows? I just don't know where all that is going. But anyways, anybody else want to bring up any other topics, anything that's on their mind? What projects are you guys working on? You guys experimenting or anything? Later today, well, maybe not today, but for this weekend, I have it on my to-do list to look at some of the new huggable, excuse me. That's funny. I was working with Lovable this morning and I confused Hugging Face and Lovable. I said huggable, sorry. I wanted to look at some of these Hugging Face models. Have you heard about this new one or this update to Kimi? It is a total of 1 trillion parameters. I think it's one of the first models to cross 1 trillion parameters. Maybe you guys can correct me in the chat. But for some reason that caught my attention. There's so many tools, you can't follow everything, right? You got to pick your battles. But I'm interested in seeing how a model like that performs. So if you guys are interested in that, it's on Hugging Face. It's called Kimi. I think it's Kimi 2. It was just released this week. But for some reason, I'm attracted to that it's a trillion parameters. So trillion's a big number, big number. So for some reason, I kind of want to just check that out. Just kind of want to see what's going on there. But what are you guys working on? You guys experimenting on anything? Anything you're curious about? I mean, the way things are going right now, you gotta have some kind of side eye towards an interesting project, Okay, so speaking of project, Casual Economist says, I'm about to hack and mod an arcade machine. Nice. Um, what kind and what hacks? I mean, the most common hack I hear about is where you get it to play a bunch of the retro games, right? Via the what are those called? Um, is it ROMs? Right? I think you can like put some ROMs on there. Yeah, I think they're ROMs, and kind of hack them for retro games. Is that what you're going for? Let me know. Casual Economist also says maybe look into some AI stuff for healthcare. Okay, cool. Cool. Casual Economist, that's right. You brought that up earlier in the week. I really think there might be an opportunity for a foundational model just for healthcare. I think that that's an interest. I think that could be like a viable startup idea that somebody could take on, right? To be one of the first ground up foundational models specifically for healthcare. That could be a very, very interesting approach. But yeah, let us know what you find on AI for healthcare there, Casual Economist. Lots of directions that can go in. Casual Economist says, yeah, I want to add a bunch of ROMs to the machine. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Um, I know that's a fun project and, hack away. I'm sure it's a big learning experience. But the part that would hold me back from that is that they're so cheap now. Like, you can go on TikTok Shop or even Best Buy or Amazon. Like you can buy like those machines that have like basically every single game ever created for like $50 or whatever, right? I remember I had one when I was in Dallas where it was like a mini PlayStation and it had every single PlayStation game. It was all run by USB. You plugged it into your computer monitor. Like it was a pretty cool system. And it was like nothing. It was like I think I bought it for like $30, Like it just seems like you can get so many games, on those machines and like it costs you nothing. So I'm sure that hacking on your own you're going to learn a lot, but like from an effort perspective, just buy the ROMs, or buy the machine. All right, so Danielson's doing some experimentation. I'm experimenting with looking at AIs to help identify suitable areas and rural areas for solar and wind home energy grids. Going back to the data transformation because I did not get any good models. Oh, that's very interesting. For solar and wind home energy grids. I've been wanting to have something to help aircraft traffic. That's very interesting, Danielson. So, so Danielson, when I see stuff like that, my natural inclination is to try to poke holes in it, but I try to poke holes from like a business perspective. And what I think about that is like, isn't there like a artificial limitation? Because you can't be too rural, right? Because you got to transmit the power somehow back, right? So like it would seem to me like it's not as broad a problem as it would seem because from a practical perspective, you can't put a solar farm anywhere you want, right? Like there's a natural constraint that it has to be relatively close to populated areas, no? I mean, maybe you know more about the topic than I do, but that's just kind of like my first take at it. Like, isn't there like a natural constraint built in? Like, you can't just say, oh, I want it 500 miles away from the nearest whatever, right? City, town, person. Like, there has to be that. And the reason I'm asking Dennison is because I've been looking at a lot of rural properties also. And, I live in Nevada that has a lot of like open land up north. So 2 weeks ago, I went on a trip where like you pass signs that say like, next gas 200 miles, right? Or insane numbers like that, right? So like, it can't just be anywhere, right? Like there has to be limitations. There's got to be like a natural constraint, no? And I'm saying that because wouldn't that make the problem easier, right? Let me know what you think about that. And it's funny that you mention aircraft traffic because Denelson, you're in Southern California, so I'm assuming you've heard about the sol not the I don't want to say well, I guess it is solar. The solar plant that Google has out near the Las Vegas border. Apparently, one of the reasons why they're shutting that down is because it was having too much of an effect on air traffic. Apparently, some of the airports down in Arizona were getting like interference from those lights over there. So I'm curious if you knew about that. You probably do because you're in LA. But it is funny to see that both solar and air traffic because those two did not go well out here at that solar plant. All right, who else? Who else is working on any interesting projects? If you don't have a project, maybe you should, right? Doesn't mean you have to do anything big with it or has to end up in an article or anything, but you should always have some sort of experimentation or things that you're trying, right? Let me know if you guys are working on anything else. Denelson says, very true. I know that having it too close to city areas is something that's troublesome. Um, yeah, I suppose it is, right? I suppose it is. But there's probably a benefit to it too, right? Because if you have it too far out, isn't there a loss that happens between like the plant and then like the receiving station or distribution station? Like I gotta imagine that the longer that distance is, there's gotta be some leakage or some loss, right? So at some point, maybe it becomes well, maybe not counterproductive, but you're not getting the maximum benefit, right? Mohammed, welcome, Mohammed. I'm pretty sure it's your first time, so thanks for coming. Hello, Dennis. Sorry, my English. I am from Morocco and I work as a data analyst. Your English is just fine. Thanks for being here, Mohammed. So, Mohammed, this is our data roundtable format. This is where we invite people to talk about anything that they want. If there's a topic you want to talk about, something interesting you read, this is an open format for us to just kind of have open discussion. Okay. So, welcome. Glad you're here, though. And let us know what part of Morocco, because we have quite a few people. I have quite a few followers from Morocco who also join in. None of them are here today, but let me know what part of Morocco. And I'm a little familiar with the country. But coming back to Denelson, I mean, let me know what you think about that, Denelson, because they just can't be too far out, because then there's a loss, there's maintenance considerations, all that stuff, right? But the point being is that has to constrain your model in some way. You can't just have a model that says do this and it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, have you guys seen that YouTube video? I think it was like Veritasium or somebody like that did a video that said that the Sahara Desert is big enough for us to create a solar plant that would power the entire world. Have you guys heard about that? That part of the earth gets enough sun and it wouldn't be as big a solar plant as people assume it is, but we can actually generate enough power for the entire world in a single farm in the middle of the Sahara. But how do you get that to the rest of the world, right? That's part of the problem. Manoj says, I'm experimenting on multiple time series of milk procurement. Okay, like you're talking from the cows themselves, I assume? Like what time of the day or year of the week is best for cows? Like give me the business case there, Manoj. Like somebody would use it to help choose like when to milk the cows, I guess. Sounds interesting. I mean, I gotta say I don't know a lot about agriculture and farm animals and stuff like that, but sounds interesting. Sounds really interesting. Let us know a couple more details if you're able to share, Manoj. But good stuff. I'm glad you guys are at least thinking about these different things, right? Because that's gonna kind of that kind of helps develop your skills, develop your methodology, but also, like I said, there's so many things to keep up with nowadays, right? So many tools coming out. You got to be able to have like that practice in evaluating tools quickly, right? I'm sorry, casual economist. I didn't mean to shoot it down. Since you shot down my project, I'll just buy the ROMs. I'm sorry. No, what I meant was you're going to learn anyways, right? Like you're going to learn, but it's going to be a passion project because money wise, it's probably a loser, right? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, right? Because I mean, you could just buy the mass market. Denelson says, yes, you are right. The farther the energy facility, the more there could be lost energy to the receiver. Yeah, right, Denelson. So, okay, so I don't know what that loss would be, but let's just say 10 miles, right? If the solar plant is more than 10 miles away, there's a significant amount of loss in the transfer, right? So that basically, so the reason I'm thinking about that is because it means that your entire answer set is basically every city plus 10 miles, right? So it's not the entire world, it's cities plus 10 miles. So to me, that seems like a fairly limited answer set, right? Like, wouldn't you just be better off like looking at like, I don't know, like sun patterns or like intensity of sun, or maybe like measuring like the what do you call it, like the different like ray spectrums, UVA versus UVB and all that, because that's what actually causes the power, right? It's not the heat, from my understanding. It's like the rays that cause the power. So I don't know, Denelson. It just seems like it's kind of constrained to say like my whole answer set can be every city plus 10 miles. Like there's other ways to get to that answer, right? But then again, casual economists would just tell you that I'm just shooting down your project, so I'm sorry, guys. Casual economist says, well, it does save me money. I had my cart full of wires, screwdrivers, and computer hardware stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, it costs money, right? And you know what? Maybe I just haven't done a lot of shopping recently, but man, things seem really expensive recently. Like, I'll give you an example. Like you know how I'm gonna go into my toolbox here. You know how like when you have tools, you basically end up standardizing like on a particular brand because of the batteries, right? You basically end up buying a battery system and then you standardize on a brand, right? So I was thinking of getting some new tools, and I like Ryobi. I have their batteries, I have their chargers. My gosh, these things are expensive. Like Ryobi is an expensive brand now. Like when I got these tools originally, like the prices were pretty reasonable, right? But geez, I was on the Home Depot website looking for tools. Man, the prices have gone up. So I don't know if that's an inflation or a tariffs thing, but even on like basic tools, I mean, I'm sure your cart was was probably a lot of money in casual economists, right? Like, I don't know, guys. It's expensive to live nowadays. Expensive, but yeah, casual economists. I mean, you could still do it. You could still learn. It would be fun. I don't know if I don't know if you have kids or you're planning to do it with your kids. That could be cool too. But but yeah, I mean, just buy the ROMs. Just buy it at mass market. Buy it on TikTok Shop for $10 or whatever. So Denelson says, yes, I've been using data from Google Earth API for the elevation, types of terrain, image of the area. I'm looking at using Open Meteor for solar irradiance and wind speed. Yeah, see, that sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. I love how you're combining multiple multiple sources there, right? So good for you. Okay, Dennelson. Well, I wish you luck in that project. And see, you don't require a cart like Casual Economist, so maybe it'll be a little bit of a cheaper project too, right? But that sounds good. Yeah, the solar irradiance. I would have thought it'd be iridescence, but yeah. See, to me that sounds like the right track, right? Like, what parts have the most solar energy, or the parts the components that cause more solar energy, right? I think that could be interesting. At the same time, it could be just the same problem in reverse, right? Like, what if it turns out that the ideal solar farm, because of the factors you're talking about, is in the middle of downtown Chicago? Like, you're not going to get that, right? But you know what I've been considering doing? And I might do this for myself in the future. Is I want to build a pergola, for outside living, and I'm going to buy a kit to make my own pergola. Like, you can buy the corners and the base and things like that. And then when I do that, I'm also going to add solar panels on top to be part of the shading. So I'm going to add those solar panels to kind of start bringing in energy and all that, while sitting on top of this pergola providing shade. So that's my little solar experiment that I have coming up, if I can line up a couple of things. Casual Economist says, I guess I'll look into healthcare AI stuff. Not sure where to start though. You're a smart guy, Casual Economist. You'll figure it out. Just one step at a time. But maybe you just should define the part of healthcare that you want to look at. Like, I know the other day you mentioned billing codes, right? The medical codes. That doesn't sound like a terrible place to start to me. But I've never worked in that space. So but you could think about something like that, right? But if you were to pursue a foundational model, the challenge there is how to get as much text as you can, right? Because that's really the biggest hurdle to overcome. How do you secure enough text to build up a model? But you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. The important part, guys, of any of all this conversation is to get started, right? You don't have to know every single answer ahead of time. Just get started. So if you're just joining us, this is our data roundtable. It's an open format for us to discuss anything that you guys would like. Please feel free to join in. Any thoughts, any projects, any articles, or whatever that you want to share. This is the time for it. This is us getting together as like-minded individuals, as people that are all collectively interested in data. This is the place. This is the safe space for data. So let me know if there's anything on your mind, guys. Good time for it. Dennelson says, I'm also not sure if to pursue my other project idea for helping with air traffic control, because there is not a lot of data I could find on it, very small amount and not very viable to use. Well, what part of air traffic control, Dennelson? I'm not very familiar with that world. I had a friend who used to be an air traffic controller. But like, what are you trying to solve there? From a people perspective, I had a friend who was an air traffic controller, and he told me something really interesting. He was somebody he was an older guy, and he had gone through a divorce, and the divorce, kind of wiped him out, And I guess here in the US, there's age restrictions on air traffic controllers. Like, I don't think you can be like, I think, is it 50 years old or something like that, or 55, and then you can't be an air traffic controller? Something like that. And he was telling me that one of the typical patterns that people do is that there are other countries that will still take you. And he ended up going to Dubai because they pay like a ridiculous salary there. And they bring in a lot of US air traffic controllers to work in Dubai. So he went over there and did that, and that's basically how he was able to recover from his divorce. I think he was over there for like 2 years, and he lived cheaply, super cheap, and just saved up his money to kind of, rebuild his savings and all of that. But that's really all I know about air traffic control. That my impression of it has been that it's a people problem. Although I have heard that they do use fairly antiquated software. I've also heard that's part of the challenges they're having or whatever. But that's all I know about air traffic control. So would love to hear what angle you're looking at, Denelson, or maybe maybe you've worked as an air traffic controller. I don't know. Right? So you could know infinitely more than any of us. But if you want to share that would be interesting to hear. But it is definitely scary, some of the stories you hear about what happens or what's been happening in these air control towers in recent times. So if you're joining us a little bit later, welcome. It's the Data Roundtable, and you are welcome to bring up any topic that you'd like. Just open up your thoughts for conversation. That's the whole point of this format. We'll be doing this same format all throughout the summer. It's something I'm experimenting with, right? You got to experiment, right? I'm a natural data scientist. I'm a natural experimenter. So Danielson says, I have yet to conduct research in the area I want to help in, but this idea came after the incidents this year. I do know that they are understaffed and it can get hectic at times. I'd like to help. All right, cool. I like that. And you know what? Sometimes not having domain knowledge can indeed help you, right? So yeah, Danielson, let us know how that project progresses over time. But now your comment makes even more sense about limited data, because how does an outsider get data for air traffic control? I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, it would be cool, actually. Oh man, that might make for a cool project. Okay, Denelson, if you want to get a start on data, I'm sure you've seen like the YouTube channels where people, tune their CB radios or whatever to listen to air traffic control towers. Like, you can do that if you live near an airport, right? Or I'm sure you can find like online streams, right? There's probably an app that does like the air traffic stuff from all over the world, right? What if you got a stream like that, some sort of audio stream, and you hooked it up to AI, right? Because AI understands audio, right? A good number of engines do, right? And ask AI to translate that into a data set. At this time, this plane took off to this destination from this airport. Why? Because AI heard it, right? Man, that could be an interesting project, guys. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the chat. That sounds like a pretty cool project. I bet you could get that up and running in a few days. Right? Get an interface so that the AI can listen to the air traffic control and turn it into some sort of structured data that would be good for like modeling or whatever, right? I bet you guys could do that. That could be cool. So Denelson, I don't know what kind of data you were looking for, what was limited, but as a data pipeline, I bet you could get that to work. Like, maybe you would come up with the table and say, here's my columns: date, origination or date, time, origination airport, airline, maybe like flight number, and then destination airport, right? And ask AI to fill out those columns via the transcript. And what's cool about it is that AI would be smart enough to know that they've only heard partial data on one flight, but they could fill it out late the other columns based on what they hear afterwards, right? Like, I don't know what, like, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm a pilot, but what if the first transmission is like, this is United Airlines taking off from runway 7 from Washington, D.C., right? That's a good record, but it's only partial because you don't know where they're going, right? So in a next transition or in the next transmission, like later on, like a couple minutes or whatever, the same pilot would say, this is United Airlines, and we're still on the runway headed to Boston, right? So the AI would be smart enough to know that, oh, that flight I heard before that was in Washington, D.C. is also headed to Boston, right? I bet you could do that. You have to include that in your prompt, but I bet you could set that up. Casual Economist says, that sounds super cool. Denelson says, this is very good. I haven't even thought of that. Yeah, I think you could do it, Denelson. I think that is a 100% a viable product. Yeah, I bet you could do that. Right now, in my mind, I'm stopping because I'm debating whether you would have to do it real time. You could even just do it from a recording. There's no, if you're still in the training phase, right? You're just trying to get the project off the ground. Or really what I would say is that this is when I would encourage my teams that we don't even call it a project. You're just trying to see if it's viable, right? Is there enough data? Does the data make sense? This is something where you could use pre-recorded data, right? Like in a full scenario, you'd have to find like an API hook or something so that the LLM could listen in real time, right? But right now you don't need that. You just need a recording. So I bet you could do that. I bet you could get one of those apps or your own CB radio or whatever. Create a 2-hour, 3-hour recording of that conversation traffic, right? I think it's called ATC, Aviation Traffic Control, or Airport Traffic Control. Get like a good sample, right? 2-3 hours. I bet you could use that, put it into AI, and you're doing that to kind of help you craft your prompt because it has to be a very good prompt, right? But I bet you could 100% do that in a few days. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So yeah, guys, I'm also going to take this as an opportunity, as a teachable moment, right? When I'm coming up with stuff like this, when you guys are I'm doing this all top of mind, right? I don't know a thing about air traffic control, and I didn't know about Denelson's project, right? But this is a pretty good example of what I mean about creativity in data science, right? Data is not always readily available. It's not always easy. It may not even seem possible. But the little exercise you saw me go through is exactly the type of creativity you need in real world data science, right? I mean, that's kind of part of that hand-to-hand combat that you need to like perfect in order to really get yourself out there, right? So like even as I tell you now, well, look, you're just in the modeling phase, you could do it with pre-recorded data. Again, that's getting creative with, I don't need things to be perfect now. I just need to see if I can train a model on this, right? So I hope you guys, kind of carry that forward into your own work, because being creative and being, kind of, I guess for lack of a better word, being tactical in that way is super important in data science. Because otherwise you would just blow it off and say, oh, that's not a good project, or we can't do that. But you can. But this is part of the creativity of data science, right? Denelson says, yes, that is very nice. It can definitely help alert staff about any conflicting flights and help avert incidents. Yep. But you know what, Denelson? There's probably a pretty big visual component to that also, right? Yeah, so two things come to mind, Denelson. because you mentioned how you're going to use it now, right? Because you can use it in any number of ways. Um, so I don't know if you guys have kept up with the airline industry, but I've read a couple of really interesting articles. The unions are very, very strong in that industry. And for a very long time, they have resisted advanced analytics in planes. My understanding is that, Boeing, Airbus, all the big companies, they have the capabilities for very advanced monitoring and analytics in planes, but the pilot unions are against it because they argue that it can be used for monitoring performance. And they're against that, right? They're against things that would hurt their membership. So, Denelson, that's another thing you'd have to contend with, right? Where I'm sure that the air traffic controllers are also unionized. So how are you going to contend when they push back and say, no, 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 we don't need this? Because even though it's a safety tool, that's you looking over the shoulder of my, of my worker or whatever, my member, right? So this is also an example of what I mean by business impacts, right? Because the argument I just gave you is purely a business argument, not a technical one, right? But what if that happens, right? What if you're developing a product that has many uses, but the one use that you pursue is going to run into some very difficult, very real pushback, right? Like, what are you going to do then, right? So keep that in mind too, Donaldson. And that goes for everybody in any project, right? The business impact could kill your project no matter how cool it is to begin with. Denelson says, now the question is if the hardware and software at the tower would be able to use the model. As you said, they do run on older versions. Yeah, but Denelson, you know what? That's not going to be your problem. The problem is going to be people, the unions, right? That's 100% going to be your problem. Like you would be fortunate to be able to have those types of technical implementation questions, right? Like I would give you less than 10% probability to be able to reach that. So again, business impact, guys, right? You got to think about the business impact of your projects. And that's exactly why I ask you guys to kind of take that forward when you publish it on LinkedIn. I don't want the technical results. I want the business results. Because Denelson, you could write like the world's greatest model with AI, with real-time, radio monitoring. But if the union says, that's you're just monitoring my workers and we're not having it, like you're dead, right? Like you are like your project would reach a very hard stop, right? And then where are you? You just wasted a few months, no matter how cool it is, no one's going to care. That sucks, right? So good stuff, guys. Good stuff to think about there. All right, guys. So this brings us to a really good stopping point. So actually, Casual Economist is one more. I actually have a bunch of data to feed the AI. I just don't know where to start a foundational project. Well, there's lots of tutorials on that, Casual Economist. Particularly from OpenAI. I'm pretty sure OpenAI has some information for you on that. So spend some time with their I think they have like a developer portal or developer docs section on their website. Pretty sure they'll get you started. Now, keep in mind, training a foundational model on a cloud instance is not cheap. You probably want to do it locally, right? Otherwise, it'll cost you like easily tens of thousands of dollars, right? It could even go more depending on how much data you have, right? But anyways, guys, thanks so much. Good discussion. Good examples of how you need to be creative in data science. Denelson, if you move forward with that whole hooking the audio to AI, basically making OpenAI or an LLM your transcriber, I think that would be damn cool. If you did that, Denelson, and you wrote an article, put it on your LinkedIn, I think you would significantly increase your chances of getting a data science job. So keep that in mind, Denelson. All right, guys. So thank you so much. Always appreciate your support. Please keep on coming back. I'm going to be doing this the rest of the summer. So take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you guys next time.